There's a lot of arguments in here about whether or not CEOs are taking advantage of the broader economy and the broader worker. And is this a debate about capital allocation, or is it a broader debate about socialism versus capitalism?
Well, I think it's even beyond socialism versus capitalism, although this does have a socialist side to it. I think what's very important about this is that this is a symptom. The stock buybacks, the punt of not being able to do anything else with the money and not invest. Why are not our companies investing more in both, their infrastructure, private investment? Why is that not picking up? Why are we not seeing more investment in human capital? Why are we not seeing those things? That's a much larger debate and much more complex. The income inequalities are certainly, I'm very concerned about that. I actually have testified to Congress on this issue. Not that anyone heard me or cared, but I think they're very important issues. But this is treating a symptom instead of the cause. And it's, that's what you've already alluded to, is this is just one of many things of sort of a problem in the broader economy, and we need to have that broader debate.
So is your basic take, Diane, that something the senators are proposing like this, assigning sort of preconditions with buybacks where you have to make investments in workers and hiring and investing in the business, a good thing or not?
I don't think it's a good thing. It's treating the wrong problem. And I think, the reality is that, once you start doing this, you're going to start closing down companies in the U.S. and having them go elsewhere even more so. So I think it's really the unintended consequences. What bothers me about all these soundbite solutions that we're seeing is they're soundbite solutions to very complex, real problems, but no one's having hearings or debate about the unintended consequences of what these policies might mean. And how are you going to arbitrarily decide what a company should do for a company? I think there's a much more fundamental issue out there is why are companies not investing? One of the reasons they aren't is because of the political dysfunction of Washington and the tribalism we've seen and uncertainty we've seen out there. They're very uncertain and walking on eggshells in what should be a very good economy. Those are things we need to have a real discussion about and real debate about.
Brian, have Senators Schumer and Sanders got a point here, or are they missing something?
No, they're totally missing something. This is completely ridiculous. If companies don't have good ideas about where to spend their money, then they should give it back to investors, and that money gets channeled to companies that have growth ideas. There's an assumption at the basis of this proposal, and it's that when companies buy back shares, that money just gets buried in the backyard of some millionaire, and that's not what happens. This money gets channeled to companies that can use it in productive ways. These senators should be cheering when you have buybacks. It's getting money out of S&P companies that don't have ideas and getting it to people who can hire workers, can expand their businesses. It's a completely ridiculous proposal, and it just shows the extent to which the left in this country wants to go to centralized decision-making in Washington, and that is going to push business. It's going to push growth out of this company. It's a destructive idea. There's no way we should be thinking about this.
So do you agree with the guest, Mike? It's better. It seems like it's better politics than economics.
It's not great economics. I mean, I do think that there's a fundamental issue. If you believe that there has to be some policy fix for wealth inequality or for companies arguably underinvesting or underhiring, then this is a clumsy way to do it, but I get where it's coming from. I do say it's extremely popular. This idea really strikes a note with the public out there, because it seems, if you just intuitively, it seems like it shouldn't be allowed. Right.
Yeah, but these senators,
and by the way, before 1982, it was not allowed.
These senators shouldn't be selling half-baked economic truths to the American public. They ought to be telling the real deal, and that is when buybacks happen, capital gets reallocated to other businesses. It's not okay for this to be good politics but bad economics. They have a responsibility.
Well, but they're also responding to a post-tax cut environment where you were promised a capex boom after a corporate tax cut that hasn't really manifest either. So both sides can use clumsy economics to sell a political position.
That's true.
I think as well, Mike, the point in this that is very fair, and kind of the thought process behind what they're proposing, whether or not the proposal is right, is that they say 85% of all stocks owned by Americans belong to the 10% most wealthy households. So there is an argument, therefore, to try and reallocate that, but maybe the better approach is a bigger capital gains tax when people sell that stock, as opposed to restricting CEOs' ability to allocate capital.
It's very heavy-handed to say you have to pay your people $15 an hour or you can't buy back stock.
And it's a back. If they want to raise the minimum wage.
One second, Brian. Go for it, Diane.
I just want to add, I mean, this idea that they're just reallocating money efficiently, that's actually one of the problems with our economy, and gets to this larger structural debate, is we've actually seen less dynamism. We've seen less innovation. We've seen less investment. And these are fundamental problems. We've seen companies that have unusual power in the market, and that has hurt workers as well. These are large issues that we need to get our arms around, and they're not going to be done in soundbite responses. And I think it's very important not to just gloss over the fact that we have some real problems here, but let's have some really thoughtful debate. Let's finally have some hearings about what the intended and unintended consequences of policy are, and get the policy at least right with some debate and some actual information. Of course, people ask me, what does Washington ask you? Well, the Fed asks me a lot of questions, but everybody else in Washington doesn't ask economists many questions at all these days.
More economists in hearings.
Brian, quick final word.
I'm biased, sorry.
If they want a 15,
I agree.
Look, this is a backdoor way to achieve other policy objectives. If they want a $15 minimum wage, then try to pass that. But they know the politics there are worse than it is with a buyback, and they're going the buyback route. That's disingenuous, and ultimately it hurts capital markets, hurts businesses, and it hurts American workers and consumers.